Good evening, everyone.
Buenas tardes a todos.
Good evening, everyone. We're going to get started in just a few moments.
Ya vamos a empezar en un
We
ratito.
have interpretation tonight. Mr. Corey Yeager is our interpreter, and he will say a few words. And then, if you need interpretation, please feel free to access that.
Hola, buenas tardes. Soy Corey Diego, el intérprete de esta noche. Si ustedes necesitan la interpretación en español, se puede hacer clic en el globo, mundo abajo, para elegir el lenguaje. If anyone needs Spanish interpretation, you can just click on the world icon at the bottom of your screen, and you should be able to select the language.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Yeager. All right. Good evening, everyone. Welcome again. This is our first community information session for the 2025-2026 academic year. I am Daphne Kaiser. I'm the Assistant Superintendent for School Community Engagement. And our focus for this evening's community information session is on generative artificial intelligence, or AI. I will be moderating the session for this evening. AI is already part of daily life, and our classrooms are no exception. In ACPS, we believe AI can help students learn in new ways, support teachers, and even improve school operations. But we're equally committed to responsible, thoughtful use that puts student safety, privacy, equity, and meaningful learning at the center. Tonight launches our division's community-wide conversations about AI, what it is, how ACPS is implementing our new policy, and how families and staff can work together so AI is used responsibly and equitably to support student learning. You'll hear an overview, practical classroom examples, and where to find resources after tonight. Specific topics covered include an overview of what AI is, including the difference between assistive and generative AI, how ACPS is implementing our new AI policy and aligning with the Student Code of Conduct, including the syllabus statement and the student AI usage scale, which makes assignment expectations clear. Practical ways AI can support instruction with examples tied to language arts and social studies standards, plus what's approved for students and why. And lastly, where to find ongoing resources after tonight on the ACPS AI webpage, which will be our single source for updates and materials. We'll begin with opening remarks from Albemarle County Public Schools Superintendent, Dr. Matthew Haas. We'll have an introduction of our panel, we'll move into brief presentations, and then open a moderated Q&A, and I will close out our time together with final thoughts and next steps. Thank you for spending part of your Tuesday with us. And at this time, I will turn it over to Dr. Haas for the welcome.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kaiser. I appreciate your words getting us started in this really critical conversation, but also a fun conversation about all the possibilities for AI in Albemarle County Public Schools. We've got great guests here tonight. We've got our own experts in ACPS and wonderful outside experts that are here to join us tonight to really add a lot of detail and possibilities to our conversation. I want to thank all of our participants who have logged in for tonight and given up some of your time to find out what we've been doing. And I'm really proud of the work that's going on in our school system. I feel that we have done a really good job of getting in front, not too far in front, not on the bleeding edge, but on the cutting edge of work with AI around instruction, around efficiency with administration, and around continuously learning about the possibilities for AI and the work that we're doing. I think we can all agree that change happens. Changes in technology are not only inevitable, but are quickening their pace over time. And so it's critical for us to not bury our heads in the sand and hope that this latest technology trend will pass us by, but rather to harness it and to use it to increase engagement with our students, increase individualized learning, and increase their career and work skills and college skills as they move forward. So having said all that, I'm going to turn things back over to Dr. Kaiser and just listen in and really enjoy the presentation tonight. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Haas. We have a really great group of panelists joining us this evening, and they will share about 6 to 8 minutes worth of information related to their diverse roles pertaining to AI. So in a moment, I will introduce them in the order in which they will present. But before I do that, I did again want to mention that we do have Spanish interpretation. Mr. Corey Yeager, he's a Burley Middle School English learner teacher, will be our interpreter for this session. So if that's important or necessary for anyone on the call, please do take advantage of this. We will also be recording this session, and information will be posted on our ACPS YouTube channel. You will have access to this for as long as you need to, and we will be sending it out to the community so that everyone will have an opportunity to watch, even if they were not able to join us tonight. Please feel free to put your questions in the Q&A function at the bottom of the Zoom anytime during the session. We'll compile them and answer as many as we can during the last 30 minutes towards the end of the presentation part of the session. A recording and follow-up resources will be posted on our ACPS YouTube channel after the session, so you can revisit and share. Tonight is the kickoff for a series of community conversations focused on AI. Your questions and feedback will inform how we refine the implementation of the AI policy in schools and classrooms, shape professional learning and supports for teachers, and help us improve the family-facing resources we'll continue to publish on the AI webpage. Our panelists this evening include members of our ACPS leadership and a higher education partner who will share perspectives from instruction, technology, student wellness, and post-secondary education. Members of the ACPS leadership include Clay Todd, Assistant Director for Technology Integration, Megan Panic, Learning Technology Integrator, or LTI, Monica Kabarkas, Curriculum Coordinator for Secondary Language Arts, and Miles Nelson, Coordinator of Mental Health and Wellness. In addition, we are so happy to have our higher education partner, Dr. Natasha Henney, Associate Professor of English Education, Faculty AI Guide, University of Virginia School of Education and Human Development. All of our work and everything we do in ACPS is centered around our strategic plan, Learning for All. Our vision: learners are engaged in authentic, challenging, and relevant learning experiences, becoming lifelong contributors and leaders in our dynamic and diverse society. Our mission: working together as a team, we will end the predictive value of race, gender, and special capacities for our children's success. Through high-quality teaching and learning for all, we seek to build relationships with our families and communities to ensure that every student succeeds, and we will know every student. Our values: equity, excellence, family and community, and wellness. Our goals: thriving students, affirming and empowering communities, and equitable and transformative resources. This evening's session touches on all three goals: thriving students, affirming and empowering communities, and transformative resources, with an emphasis on thriving students and affirming and empowering communities. Now, I'm going to turn it over to our panelists, and we will come back in a short while to answer questions afterward. Megan Pannett, Learning Technology Integrator, or LTI, and Clay Todd, Assistant Director for Technology Integration, will be first to present. Also, Clay will come back later in the presentation to speak. Megan and Clay.
So welcome, everyone. We wanted to start off this presentation with a little bit of background information about what AI is, and also a little bit of a historical perspective on AI. So to begin, I want you to look at all of the different tools that are on the screen currently and consider how often you use these tools in daily life. I'll give you a minute. So every tool that you're seeing on the screen currently is an AI tool. Many of these tools have been around for years and years and have become parts of our daily life that we frankly could not live without. And if you could click the slide one more time, you'll see there's another little pop-up. Machine learning has existed since the 1950s. So truly, AI and machine learning is not new in our society. But there is something that has changed more recently relating to AI. So on the next slide, we'll see exactly what that is. It's hard to believe, but ChatGPT was released November 30th of 2022. It is less than 3 years old, even though it seems like it has dramatically changed our society in those 3 short years. And ChatGPT brought in a new wave of AI. So ChatGPT is when most people think of AI nowadays, it's kind of the tool that a lot of people's brain goes to right away. It's definitely been at the forefront of what we've been talking a lot about with students and with staff at schools. And as you can see on the screen, I put a couple of examples of prompts that would be really good prompts to ask ChatGPT, because ChatGPT is very good at doing certain things. So for example, helping you rewrite an email to have a different tone to it. So it's really good for doing a little bit of revising and editing of your writing. Using a to-do list to help sort and plan can be a really good co-planner. I love to use it for recipes. I have these ingredients. What can I make? And also thinking about, again, kind of planning, writing a travel itinerary. ChatGPT is great for these kind of personal tasks. What it's not great at are the things that you're seeing on the right-hand side of the screen. It's definitely not something that you want to take any kind of financial, tax, or legal advice from, because it is not up on all of the legal codes and the tax codes. It's also not something that you want to ask for recent events, because it is not trained on necessarily recent data. So that second one, provide a summary of the bills that Congress has passed in the last 6 months, it's not going to do a very good job answering that question because it might not have all that data. And last but not least, if you ask it to write something relating to a very specific article and ask it to give quotes, the bad thing about ChatGPT is it's going to try to do it, even if it doesn't have access to that article. So it will hallucinate and it can just make things up. And we've seen that happen many times. So with this event of this very powerful new tool, it has really changed the game in education. So if we go to the next slide, we'll see why. Really, ChatGPT moved us from traditional AI, what we would also call assistive AI, into the world of generative AI. So when we compare these two, traditional or assistive AI is things like Netflix, Alexa, these tools that we've had for years in our homes and in our lives. Those assistive AI tools, they enable machines to interpret data and help make decisions. This is why Netflix can recommend amazing things for you to watch. It's gathering all of what you've watched, all the data on what you've watched in the past, and it's offering you really good suggestions. Same thing with Alexa. Generative AI is something new. Generative AI are tools that can create new content. So it's creating something completely novel out of patterns that it has learned. And this is what tools like Gemini and ChatGPT are doing. So if we move to the next slide, on a deeper level, our assistive AI we used to train it with a lot of data. So we would, if we wanted it to recognize what a cat was, we'd train it with a lot of images of cats. And our assistive AI tools the things like Netflix and Alexa would be able to look through several images and say, okay, I've seen enough cats. I know that that's a cat. What generative AI can now do is say that I've seen so many cats, I've even learned how to draw a cat. So let me draw you a cat. And the image that you're seeing there is actually created by ChatGPT's AI image generator called DALL-E. So it actually created that image of a cat from a prompt. So generative AI is really changing the game in AI and has caused us to, in the last 3 years since ChatGPT emerged, create the guidelines and the policies that we're about to outline.
Thanks, Megan. And I'll just jump in before Dr. Henney speaks for us today to say that we recognize as a school division that this is a big shift. However, the point of what we're trying to share now is that AI itself is not new. These data sets have been around for a long time, and what has changed is the power of the computer and the algorithm, that the instructions that the computer uses to work through that data set, and it's now able to make new things. An example might be spell check, has been around for quite a while. It has a data set, it knows what a correctly spelled word is, but now we have tools like Grammarly, like ChatGPT, that can say, I know I can take those words, not only spell them correctly, but spin them into sentences. So AI is not new. The generative piece is what's new, and it's what we're focusing on tonight.
Thanks, Megan and Clay. Next up, we have Dr. Natasha Henney, Associate Professor of English Education, Faculty AI Guide, University of Virginia School of Education and Human Development.
Hi, I'm so glad to be here, and I'm glad that all of you are here. In my role at the university as a teacher educator and as a faculty AI guide, I have found that the impact of generative AI on the future is simultaneously exciting and terrifying. And it is my belief that in engaging in critical conversations like this about it with one another and our students is profoundly necessary. And for the next 7 minutes or so, I'm going to share a little bit about the implications that AI has outside of K-12 education, but which provides that necessary backdrop for what is happening in our kids' schools. So if you'll go to the next slide. AI isn't mainly about robots replacing people, even though those are the scare tactics that we hear. There we go. It's changing the tasks out inside many jobs, and large studies suggest that roughly 4 in 10 jobs globally include tasks that AI could touch. In advanced economies like our own, it's closer to 6 in 10 jobs. So if you look at the bar graph, you can see that the biggest near-term shifts are in clerical and administrative work, but even high-skill roles are changing because AI can take on some non-routine cognitive tasks. And crucially, the most important pattern right now is AI plus human. Tools speed up drafting and first-pass analyses so that people can spend more time on judgment, communication, and relationships. And we're seeing evidence that when used well, AI can boost productivity. But only about 1 in 6 US workers currently say that they use AI at work, which means there's a real opportunity for schools and communities to build confident, ethical use. So the headline really isn't doom, it's shift. And our job is to help students learn to use these tools well and responsibly. So if you go to the next slide, any tech shift can widen equity gaps if we're not careful. And access and training really, really matter. Workers with more education or under 50 are currently more likely to use AI tools at work, which could widen opportunity and wage gaps if others don't get support. Occupational patterns matter also. Clerical tasks, which are disproportionately held by women in many countries, are among the most exposed. And then there's a place gap. Regions with stronger digital infrastructure benefit sooner. And so schools and community partners can help close these gaps with equitable access, guidance, and clear norms. And I argue that educators are irresponsible if we do not provide appropriate education around the ethical use of this technology. Okay, go to the next slide. I just wanted to also show you that AI is not abstract. It's right here in our community. At UVA Health, ambient AI drafts visit notes from clinician and patient conversations. Humans review and correct them. Our biotech hub uses AI to clean data and to scan literature. UVA researchers are accelerating discovery in areas like heart failure treatments up at North Fork and Rivanna Station. Teams use AI to sift massive data sets. Human analysts verify and explain. Small businesses and nonprofits are drafting grants, web copy, outreach, and in Albemarle County Public Schools, staff are leveraging AI for better communication and stronger differentiated instruction with privacy guardrails. So the common thread is task transformation. Next, I want to show you the next slide. I want to share a little bit about what we're doing at UVA in response to generative AI and its impact on teaching and learning. After the 2023, we had a 2023 task force right after ChatGPT came out in 2022. And our provost launched a program called the UVA Faculty AI Guides, and it's a cross-grounds cohort that supports grassroots learning in every discipline, from engineering to English. And the idea is simple: to pair curious faculty with practical training and a peer network so that we can learn quickly, share what works, and bring it back to our classrooms. And I think that this is what's happening as well in Albemarle County Public Schools, is that teachers are learning and sharing what they're learning alongside the students. So if you go to the next slide, I want to show you, hopefully this will work, but in order to show you in a silly way the pressure that educators all over the world are feeling, I wanted to share a little short TikTok video that one of my colleagues found. And it is silly, but it is real. So Clay, if you'll play that.
Sure. And presenters, please let me know if the sound doesn't work.
This is how I summarized hour-long lectures in seconds with AI. This lecture's 58 minutes long. We don't have time for that. But do not worry, because AI is going to summarize this whole thing. Let me show you how. First, just copy the link to the lecture you want to summarize. Then it's as easy as pasting the link into mindgrasp.ai. Then instantly you have notes to the entire lecture. It even provides you with a summary on all of the key concepts. You can even ask specific questions from the lecture, and it'll give you detailed answers like these. This literally took me a couple of minutes, and I summarized the entire lecture with ease. We all know how pointless lectures can be, so save yourself the time and use this tool.
So you can see that students are exploring this technology to find ways to make their lives easier so that they can have the time to do the things that they care the most about. And this is not a new challenge, but AI is providing us with a new urgency to regenerate interest in our academic disciplines for our students. We have to recognize, though, that faculty are learning right alongside the students, and that is exciting, but really challenging, because AI is pushing us not just to rethink assessment, but also what counts as work in our disciplines. So, for example, in coding, because AI can scaffold or even produce runnable code, we now start weight grading towards problem framing or decomposition or debugging and code review. In writing, since AI can draft fluent text, we emphasize process over product, and we emphasize idea development, evidence, voice, and visible revision trails. And because tools are changing so quickly, we have to be nimble and keep our focus on clarity of expectations and equity, clear class policies, shared expectations for disclosure, and equitable access so that all students can practice using AI responsibly. We're not trying to make courses AI proof. We're just trying to help students become future ready. So the last slide. Sorry, one more slide. Okay, so it's students who can frame problems and communicate clearly, use AI transparently, and verify outputs are the ones who will thrive across clinics, labs, classrooms, teams, tasting rooms, city hall, wherever. So we have to think about AI plus human skills now. Clear writing and communication, problem solving with data, responsible use, and collaboration. And we have to focus on these transferable skills. There are, I would suggest, 3 practical moves at home. And the first is to keep championing strong writing and communication. problem solving, and collaboration. Encourage students to note how they used AI to double check facts and to cite sources, including AI. Also, talk about with your students when AI helps, like during brainstorming or outline, and when it hurts, when it bypasses learning. And ask teachers about class policies. Expect variation by course. It's going to be very different in the different disciplines. Just keep having these conversations and stay curious, because there's a lot of work ahead of us to educate ourselves and our kids about the responsible and ethical uses of this new technology, or not new, I guess, this old new technology that has infiltrated almost every aspect of our society. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Dr. Henney. We're on now to Miles Nelson, Coordinator of Mental Health and Wellness.
Yeah, thank you. So I wanted to continue our conversation about healthy norms for kids. So talking about the impact of technology on mental health. Today we're focusing specifically a lot on AI and its integration within schools and the different aspects of how it's impacted that, but also wanted to touch base on how it's also impacting mental health. But before I dived into that, I wanted to talk about mental health more broadly to set the context for our conversation today. And so I have a chart up here that's from National Council on Teen Mental Health First Aid. So when we look at our teen mental health first aid data, it says that young people tell us that they're more likely to seek help from family or friends. 48%, in fact, for turning to family, which I think is phenomenal. It means that families are such a great resource for their children, and that it reminds us that families are central to the students' well-being. And so I often think in the context of Maya Angelou's words for mental health, it's that people forget what you said, people forget what you did, but they never forget how you made them feel. And so I think that really captures the essence of what I'm going to talk about today. I did want to give a quick warning in that my next few slides, I am going to talk about a lot of mental health challenges and reference many different types that youth face today. So with that, going to our next slide. And this is some of our local data around mental health, and it comes from our Department of Criminal Justice survey that we give every winter, and it revolves around students' climate. And one section of that survey focuses on student mental health. This is in particular, and I just pulled a brief snippet, our middle school data, and it talks about, there's a question that focuses around, in the past 2 weeks, have you felt hopeless or unable to continue with activities that you like? And then the second question that they also ask is, have you ever seriously contemplated suicide? And we do see that within our student population, but it's not just a norm for ACPS. It's a norm within the region, it's a norm within the state. And so how we implement and provide resources for families is a huge part of helping students thrive holistically. And so talking again about the different things that we have in place and the supports we have in place and strengthening community connections, all of that is one of our biggest protective factors for student mental health is, do they have a trusted adult? And so that connection is one of the biggest prevention factors that we can have for students. And so I have one last quick video that I want to share from the National Council who created the Teen Mental Health First Aid curriculum, and it highlights mental health and what it looks like when we need support and how we can better support those experiencing challenges when they're uncertain of how to ask for help next. Go ahead, Clay. Nope, I'm not getting any audio. Well, I can work on.
Hey, CJ. Coach. Emma. Mom. Last year I experimented with painkillers and then I started taking them every day. 174 days ago, I started intentionally vomiting after meals. My anterior cingulate cortex has a population of overactive neurons. Cutting my arms has become a compulsive behavior. I started having suicidal thoughts. Can you help me find the proper support and medical resources? Can you help me research the best treatment facilities? I'd love to chat with you about ideas on how to help manage this.
So, I mean, it's a quick clip and it's a little bit sarcastic, but there's some truth to it. When we are struggling with mental health challenges, we don't always know how to ask for help next. And so I think that is why I'm coming into the conversation today, is because sometimes it increases students' use for things like ChatGPT and other chatbots about what do I do when I have a mental health challenge? I'm asking questions. And so many students, instead of turning to peers or families because of stigma or shame, there's still barriers that we face every day. And so if students don't feel safe enough to talking with the people they know, then they may turn to, again, the technology that makes it feel easier and less judgmental. Getting there, you can go back one slide. The challenge is what a chatbot may provide answers. It cannot replace the compassion and empathy that a caring adult can offer. And our role as educators, as parents, is to make sure the students know they feel heard and supported, and when they come to us with those mental health concerns. So I highlight one example that I've read through many different articles around the use of mental health in AI now, and AI often misses context. So it's a machine language learning system. There we go. I got this. And it learns from multiple systems. So sometimes it doesn't always get the innuendos. For example, I was reading through one and it was like, I'm just feeling terrible. I've lost my job. Where's the closest bridge that's 75 feet tall? And the chatbot responds empathetically at first. I'm so sorry you lost your job. Hey, I'm happy that I can help you find the bridge closest to you. It misses the dangerous references to suicide and other things that aren't explicitly clear. And so this, again, it just highlights why that human judgment and connection are so important. Again, AI is a tool. It can't replace adults who can listen and respond with care. And it leads into the next slide that not all AI chatbots react the same. And so this bucket or these three examples you hear is kind of some contextualization that was presented by the American Psychological Association. And it talks about FDA approved chatbots. So ones that have gone through clinical trials that can treat, diagnose. There aren't any. There are some that are unregulated right now that say that they are an AI therapist, an AI counselor bot. And so they might have better context to it. And then there are others that are on the entertainment side, thinking of like Meta or ChatGPT, that sometimes unvetted, we are missing those context pieces. So due to this variability, we're starting to see legislation across the country around AI use and mental health, and it's just expanding. And so with that, it really comes back to those healthy norms of how do we continue to have those conversations with our children, with our teenagers, and talk about their use of those systems. And so go to the next slide, Claire. So again, the more we can normalize these conversations, the better equipped we are to respond when these challenges arise. So for example, I've listed some resources here. The American Academy of Pediatrics has a great starting place. It is a family and media guide, and it's not specific to AI, but to media in general. So what does it look like for screen time, for phone time, for all the different pieces? And how do we come to an agreement as a family? And I think that that is important, that we're continuing to have those conversations. And again, Common Sense Media builds upon all of that and has many different articles about recommendations and goes in depth to about some of the things that they're finding. And so that example I gave around the bridge was one that I found from Common Sense Media's dive into Facebook's Meta. And so with that, I like to always highlight our resources. 988 is a national line that if anyone's ever struggling with a mental health challenge, that they can call for resources for themselves or for others if you need to ask for help on how to support somebody. Help Happens Here is a local branch from our community, our Coalition of Mental Health and Wellness, which is in partnership with Region 10, and they have tons of resources around local mental health services. And then there's Help Me, which is our own local confidential reporting app. So if you want to start the conversation around mental health with schools, but you're unsure of where to start, you don't know who the school counselor is, or not sure how to get in touch with someone, that could be the starting place of how you start this conversation. And so, again, I think being that compassionate, caring adult and starting this conversation early is important. So when the harder subjects come up and the more challenging subjects come up, we're prepared and ready to have those conversations around things that we've already had conversations about. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Clay.
Thanks, Miles. So a lot of you are probably wondering at this point, I've heard a lot about what AI is, what's happening at the university level, how it's impacting education and future educators, as well as some of the mental health impacts. We haven't talked as much about the security impacts of what happens with data. We'll get into that a little, but what is ACPS doing about all of this? It matters to us, certainly, in that we hear the need for students to be learning about how to use AI in ethical ways, to be learning about how to use AI in ways that are and are not appropriate for school. What does it mean to use AI in a certain content area versus another, or on a certain assignment versus another, depending on the context of that assignment? We're thinking about all of these things, and we've been putting them, we've developed a plan essentially for all of our educators to receive professional learning, as well as for our students to receive learning around AI and the appropriate use and the effective use of it, so that they have those opportunities in school to learn, to make mistakes, so that we are not exacerbating achievement gaps by not providing opportunities to students, but in ways that also encourage students to be thinking about things like they're being mindful about their technology use, having a healthy relationship with their technology use, and also thinking about challenges like academic integrity and what does it mean to use AI in a way that is appropriate for school. So we have done a few things so far that I want to share with you. Very recently, very recently, it may not even be listed on the school board website quite yet, but it will be very soon. We have generated an AI policy. And this policy is designed to be flexible, because we know that AI is it's a technology, it's a new technology, and as with all new technology, it's going to change a lot, and it's going to continue to change very quickly. So we need to be able to update it. So that policy basically references other documents that we are, and policies that we are considering that AI has an impact on. The first being the Student Code of Conduct, and this is the policy that that regulates concerns around plagiarism, cheating, academic honesty and integrity. The responsible use of technology policy. So how am I using my school technology, both the hardware and the software and the web tools that students will be interacting with, knowing that AI is now one of those new tools in some cases. And finally, the data governance policy. And this is the policy that regulates student data and staff data, just to make sure that it's protected and safe. And you can imagine the many ways that AI has impacts there. So we definitely encourage you, if you're a policy kind of person, to take a look at it when it's posted, which should be very soon. And we will be continuing to update the policy and regulations as this technology evolves. Know that as far as what AI is available in schools for students to use, there's a very specific regulated process for that. We do not have all AI turned on by any stretch of the means. In fact, it's quite the opposite. In order for us to turn on an AI tool, it goes through a rigorous vetting process, and it's vetted for things like privacy. So what's happening to the data, or the information that students or faculty are putting into an AI tool, and is that data being used to train the AI's model? We want to make sure that the data is safe and protected, and that the AI is not learning from student data itself. That data is protected, and we take it very seriously. Accuracy and bias. Is the information that I get out of AI high quality? Is it unbiased? As Megan mentioned before, AI is trained on a data set, and the quality of that data set drastically affects the output. Is the information that's coming out accurate, and is it reflective of the values that we hold in terms of equity in ACPS? And finally, is it age appropriate? Many of you may be aware that most web tools have a privacy policy and a terms of service. We read through those thoroughly to make sure that the terms of service and privacy policy of a tool support use by students of a certain age. Quite often that line is drawn at 13 years old, in which case it often means it may only be available for high school students. And is it developmentally appropriate? And we work very closely. I'm in the Department of Technology, but we work very closely with our Department of Instruction around what it means for something to be appropriate for use in a certain context. Finally, we are working on a professional learning plan for all of our staff. All of our teachers receive some baseline training on our philosophy and resources, which you'll hear about in just a moment. And our secondary staff and our ELA staff in particular and our social studies staff, as well as our library staff, have received some additional training and some curriculum to work through these issues and through this difficult topic with students. Know as well that we are putting a plan in place for further training with all staff through our learning technology team. Megan, who's here tonight, is a learning technology integrator. This is an individual who is in every building, and they work directly with staff and students around the appropriate, safe, transformative use of technology in schools. And so you can imagine that AI is very much on our minds right now in terms of being a technology that impacts all of those areas. We have a few resources that you are welcome to take a look at. I'm not going to open them up tonight because there's a lot of text in there, and it's worth your time to explore and take a deep dive. Our guiding principles document, this was drafted by a host of school leaders and division leaders who all attended some professional learning provided by the state of Virginia around AI and its impacts. And those guiding principles are really what guides our philosophy moving forward with AI. And the core of that is that we understand that this is a tool that is impactful, and it has opportunities and it has challenges. And those opportunities and challenges are named in that document. We encourage you to take a look. Based on that document, we have our instructional best practices document, and this is geared towards our teachers, naming the specific best practices when incorporating AI into instruction. And it includes all areas like assessment, curriculum, communication, and very specifically names the expectations and the best practices that we have in terms of incorporating AI. And finally, our resources, which is what Monica is going to share a little bit more about. And you may have, as a parent or family member, seen some of these resources already at home. What I do want to highlight, though, is that all of these can be found at our website, which is our one-stop shop for all things AI and ACPS, and that's k12albemarle.org/AI. Should be pretty easy to remember. Everything there is what we've created so far, but know that this is a living page. As we continue to develop more resources, it will grow as we grow into this new world that has been laid before us with AI. So I'm going to turn it over to Monica to share a bit more about those resources.
Thank you, Clay. And as Clay mentioned, next up we have Monica Kabarkas, the curriculum coordinator for secondary language arts.
Thank you. As Clay mentioned, this is a rapidly changing landscape in education. We began this syllabus statement in English language arts classes last year, and it's even morphed within 1 year's time. The big change is that this syllabus statement has been refined with a group of educators and instructors really thinking about important features that have changed, and it is printed on every single content area syllabus at this point. So this statement was designed to kind of clarify appropriate use of AI in the classroom, and it puts the teacher in the driver's seat, excuse me. And it applies to anything like artwork, graphics, audio, any of these pieces that a student may recover from a tool like ChatGPT or Gemini, this statement would apply to it. The first statement out of the 4 bullets is highlighted because it's one of the most essential pieces that puts the teacher in the driving seat. And it's the degree and the role of appropriate AI use in a task is informed first by the learning goals. So we try to put the learning goals and the curriculum and the standards first. And if the teacher deems that there's a meaningful use for it, then that teacher may decide to incorporate that in the assignment. But the teacher makes the decision. There is a table which we'll reference in just a moment, and that table is used as an AI usage scale, and it goes between full AI use on one side to no AI use at all. If your instructor does not explicitly identify a role, then a student should understand that AI use is not allowed on the assignment. And if a student is confused, we've encouraged them to reach out to their teacher. So the first statement is the most important piece because the teacher is the one driving the boundaries of the assignment, and the other bullets in the syllabus statement apply to features like citations, academic honesty, the responsibility of the student to check for bias or inaccuracies, and then to just be aware of privacy. So this statement may have been something that you saw on a student syllabus at some point, but it should be appearing on all subjects this year. If you could go ahead and advance to the next one. As I said earlier, the AI usage scale goes from no AI use to full AI use. And I'm going to ask Clay to click on the actual scale so you can see the visual of it. This visual is printed and posted in many classrooms and workroom areas as teachers and students become familiar with it. The first step is for no AI use, and this typically could happen, for example, in a class like the humanities. The humanities and social studies in English, there's a lot of writing involved in assignments, and teachers feel that the writing is about original voice, creativity, and we want to protect the purity and the essence of that. That's like the productive struggle that the students faces in that area. So in those areas of the humanities, you may see teachers use a tool like AI far less than another subject like engineering, which might be an elective course, where our teacher might say, rather than spend the entire time with a small group of students arguing about which idea they want to engineer and design, they may say, you can go ahead on AI and generate 10 ideas, but you have 5 minutes as a team to decide which idea is going to be the idea that you're going to use, and you're going to make your design and get some feedback, do some revisions, and make multiple iterations of repeating the project until it's refined. So you can see that in a subject like humanities, AI may not have a proper role, but in a subject like engineering, where we have a really shortened block because maybe it's an elective block, we might use it to be more efficient. And it doesn't take away from the essence of the subject, which in that case would be the design process, the revision process, the feedback, and multiple iterations of making something better. The second role is AI planning, and this is a step where we're beginning to introduce some features of AI. So you might use it for brainstorming. As I said, this would be an example with the engineering class where they were allowed to generate a list of 10 things that they might try. So that role is just kind of AI light. You're just dipping your toe into the water, using it for aspects of like a bibliography builder, citation generator, short brainstorm list. But then we move into the last 2 categories, which become a bit heavier. And 3 is more of an AI collaboration. And that's where you might have AI pick up specific tasks, such as drafting parts of a text or refining pieces of text. And then you might go back and forth as a partner and collaborate and refine what AI has suggested to you. And in 4, full AI, you're using it much more heavily. You might have it draft an entire piece of an email for you. So as you can see, the scale increases, and there's some gray areas in this right now. So I'll mention, even though this scale does not mention a specific tool or brand, I'll mention something like Grammarly. Grammarly often uses a free version that to most students and teachers feels like a simple spell check. You know, it's going to suggest a comma here or change a word. But once it changes from the free version to a paid account, Grammarly will go from maybe like a level 2, excuse me, where there's some planning features, to something a little bit much more heavier with the collaboration. Now it's starting to take student sentences and change entire phrases, word order, use precise vocabulary, which begins to change the voice of the student's writing. So you can see that a tool like that depending on whether you're using the free aspect of it or the paid aspect, could sit between the step 2 and step 3. So going back again to the syllabus statement, in areas like that, it's really important that students have conversations with teachers, because the teacher is the one in the driving seat determining if there is a meaningful instructional purpose to using for AI to have a role in the assignment. And I mentioned Grammarly in particular because sometimes we have families where a student might ask for it to upgrade to a paid account, and you might see this as a tool that's helpful for your child, but it's one of those things where you might need to really look at what that tool is doing for your child and whether the assignment permits that, because we're entering a new rapidly changing landscape. So these are some things I would want a parent to be mindful about. So I introduced that as an example. Clay, we could go back to the next slide. So why is AI a part of our curriculum? To kind of explain why we've incorporated this, the English Language Arts standards were upgraded in 2024. They were passed by the Virginia Department of Education in April, and then they began being implemented in August of that year. So it was a very fast turnaround compared to the usual 1-year waiting period. But one of the standards in particular says that students will demonstrate the ethical and responsible use of all sources, including the internet, artificial intelligence, and new technologies as they emerge. So this almost reminds me of that piece that Natasha mentioned earlier about being future ready, that the standard was almost built to last for a while. And this standard was represented across grades 6 through 12. So we changed from the typical students will use citations to give credit to sources to something much more complex. And with that, we began implementing lessons in English Language Arts last year. And we implemented 2, and we tried the same lesson across the board. And this year, we began to continue that pattern, and we changed and upgraded some of the lessons to some specific features of AI. So we now have all students experiencing 2 lessons in English Language Arts that go directly back to that standard. And we've also added 1 lesson through social studies class. Again, social studies or history is another critical humanities course that involves a lot of writing. Some of that writing is part of our locally verified credits that is submitted in place of an SOL. So academic integrity is really important there. And going through that productive struggle and grit is really important as well. So we feature these lessons in those classes so we can frame the boundaries and remind students that it's really about the teacher determining a role and having a conversation if you're not sure and asking questions to remain on the honest side of academic integrity. Those lessons that we have in language arts and social studies focus on bias and how it shows up in AI, evaluating sources, and citing them as well. Last but not least, there is one other tie in our curriculum to AI, and those come through the computer science standards, which are fairly new. And this year is the year that the Virginia Department of Education expects us to be implementing those throughout content areas. And this doesn't mean that we're teaching a computer science course in language arts class or in history class or art class. It simply means that wherever possible, we are infusing these computer science standards to help students appreciate and develop the mindset of STEM and science and technology and engineering and math, those components of thinking that are a habit of mine in the field of computer science. And as Clay said earlier, all of our schools have a wonderful learning technology integrator like Megan Panic. They're available to help staff and students think through these materials. Our librarians also support the English language arts and history teachers implementing those lessons as well. I'm going to give it back to you, Clay.
So as I mentioned before, I'd like to point you back to our website. We will continue to update that as we have additional resources, as we continue to build curriculum. And I believe that with that, Daphne, that is the end of our panel's time. So whenever you're ready to move into Q&A.
Thank you so much, Dr. Henney, Clay Todd, Megan Panic, Miles Nelson, and Monica Cabarcas for your presentation this evening. You've been informative and provided the community with valuable information. Now we're going to take about 30 minutes to answer questions. We've had several come in through the Q&A function at the bottom of the Zoom, and feel free to keep sending those through, and we will answer in the order that we are receiving these. However, do feel free to email the superintendent's office at k12albemarle.org email address if you feel you have further questions or do not get an answer due to the lack of time. So our first question, and our first question goes to Clay. What's one thing we want every student or family to do when they use AI?
I can think of several things. Hard to boil down to one, but I would say verify what it says. Check the output. Whatever you put in, it is designed to give you an answer. And as Megan said before, it will make up an answer if it doesn't have one. Check to see that whatever it says is true. And that's a research skill that we teach in and have been teaching for decades. Just like we would verify anything else, anything anybody says, we want to verify what AI has to say. I would also say, be careful what you put in. Keep in mind that AI, some tools, not all tools, but some tools will train itself on what you say and put in. And so it's important not to put in personally identifiable information into AI. Don't overshare. Think if I wouldn't share that with a stranger, I probably shouldn't be sharing it with AI.
Next question is also for you, Clay. Can you talk a little bit more about the student AI tools and the ones that are on right now, and like what made the cut?
Sure. We have a short list of tools right now. I don't have time to share all of them, but you can check out more information on the website as if you want details. And as I mentioned, all of these resources have been vetted and approved through a rigorous process. A couple of note, Gemini, Google Gemini, is a very similar tool to ChatGPT and how it works. It's a chat bot. That is on in our environment for high school students, of course, at the guidance of their teacher in terms of how they're using it in courses. And the reason that we encourage the use of Gemini is because it falls under our division's Google license. Our students have access to things like Google Drive, Docs, etc. And because they have access to those tools and Gemini falls under that license, we're able to be a little bit more controlled in terms of what students can do, what features we turn on with it. And it also, we have a separate data agreement with Google that protects some of the information that goes into Gemini. So that's a big one. I will also say that a couple others of interest might be Canva. You may have heard of Canva. It's a graphic design tool that is available K-12, has recently started introducing some AI features. But what we've done with Canva is turned on a few of those features so that folks can start experimenting with what AI might look like in the field of graphic design. I don't want to put her on the spot, but Megan, I don't know if anything comes to your mind as well, being out in the schools of any examples of tools that you've seen that are approved that have any exciting applications that you've done with students or staff.
Yeah, we have used a few tools like Gemini and ChatGPT, though predominantly ChatGPT, to do some data visualization. So being able to take a data set and then help turn that data set into some kind of infographic or just even graphs is one thing that we've done. We've also used it to do some brainstorming in certain situations, again, typically not in the humanities, but in other situations when that kind of, it's not necessarily the point of the assignment to get them to be super creative, to get students to be super creative in their idea generation. We'll use it for some initial brainstorming. And it can also be really helpful. It's a good planner. So using it, we've used it even like in this kind of Avid classes as well as some freshman seminar classes to help just generate some plans. So these are the assignments that I have to get done, and kind of generate a pace chart essentially for students. So help them use it to plan out their like upcoming weeks.
So those are a couple examples. There, again, we encourage you to check out the website to see more specifics around what is available in the environment. And you should see linked there kind of the why, as well as any sort of best practices and cautions associated with each of those tools.
Okay, thank you. Thank you
Mhm.
both. The next question goes to Monica. What does a simple AI citation look like for K-12 work?
Can I put this in the chat?
Sure.
Is that something that everyone will be able to see? Okay, let's see. It depends on how you're choosing to cite it. Oh wait, I'm in the wrong field. Okay, here we go. I think I tried doing one earlier. So if you look in the chat box right now, you can see that one of them is in Modern Language Association MLA format, which is often used in English language arts classes, and that citation will have the actual prompt that the student used, which was describe the symbolism of the green light in the book The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald. This actually came from the MLA site. They do agree that it could be streamlined into, I think we might have copied twice, but it was like symbolism of the green light in the book. When you get into citations that are in APA format, which is American Psychology Association, they actually don't require you to put the entire prompt, but you can always use the address to go back and see the prompt that was used. So I'm sure these are going to morph and change throughout time, but they typically involve the date, the prompt that a student used, or the address that leads back to the prompt.
All right, thank you. All right, our next question goes to Miles. What's ACPS's guidance on mental health chatbots?
Yeah, so I think it comes back to kind of what we talked about in having conversations around kids. So we don't use them as a supported service. However, it doesn't say that students have used it to say, try to talk to a chatbot about mental health. And so again, it comes back to making sure that if you notice that a student is heavily using chatbots, to ask more information, more questions, and being curious about the different structures they're using. So again, we lean into that human support and human care and support, because a lot of times right now there is context and not always good advice around some of the more serious mental health challenges like self-harm, suicidal ideation. And so making sure that we're just continuing to have conversations with kids.
And then what should a student do if AI returns harmful or biased content?
Continue to use like the like and no like features, that it's not a good response, document it, take screenshots of it. And again, the more that we can push into the trainings from like teen mental health first aid, it's how we have conversations around mental health. So being able to broach that conversation with our kids, with letting our kids know that we're open to that conversation and that we're going to listen in an empathetic way of how we hear their struggles. And so I think starting that conversation early will help and reduce the need to rely on AI chatbots for mental health services.
Okay, thank you. The next couple of questions go to Dr. Henney. From a university lens, what 2 AI-ready habits should ACPS grads have?
I think one of them is more of an understanding. And the understanding is that in order to use AI effectively, you have to have a degree of expertise in your content area. So I think this is a little bit like about what Clay was talking about. You have to be able to evaluate, you have to be able to check the output, but in order to do that, you have to understand the content. So I'm not saying this very well, but you have to understand that AI is only going to be useful to you if you have an understanding in the area that you're looking for help from it. And I think that if students can leave high school with a degree of literacy around how it works and where the biases are baked in the model, as well as where the biases come from their own input into it. If they can understand how it works and how to be skeptical of it and to understand some of the ethical concerns that people have around it, then they can make responsible choices about when to use it after school at the university level or in their workplace, because we don't want students using it without an understanding of the damage it can do to the learning that occurs. We don't want their university education to be wasted. We don't want any shortcut in the learning. We want them to go through that struggle that someone was talking about, the struggle of learning. And so if they understand, if they have that basic literacy around AI, coming to us, it'll be so much easier for us to engage them in whatever it is that they're interested in.
And then how is assessment changing in
Oh.
college with AI?
Oh gosh. So we talk and talk and talk, and we have faculty are going all the way back to blue books and oral exam. Like we are having everybody, it's a huge range. I mean, the university's big, there's so many different faculty doing everything, but everyone is having a conversation about assessment right now because of generative AI. And so depending on the discipline you're in, a lot of the writing courses, it's very, very challenging. And so people are, going back to those blue books. But right now, what's happening is that we're trying to explore what assessment can look like um, with AI in the mix. And that means revisiting our entire discipline and what matters in it. And so this is a huge, difficult step that's happening. But we know that those AI checkers don't work. They're not there's too many false positives, too many there's no sense in using those AI checkers because we can't trust them. And so there's really just sort of working with students and trying to develop an understanding of helping them understand why what we're doing is important. And that goes way beyond assessment, but assessment is ultimately the thing that gets changed the most. So it's really hard. I hope you can feel the pain that I'm feeling right now. The assessment it's really, really hard.
And Monica, how does what Dr. Henney has stated about assessment, how does that impact K-12?
I think there's ongoing conversations about the same thing. Do we get some students to do their work in handwriting, use more of an oral interview? There's different technology tools that we have, which Clay could probably speak a little bit more to, like I believe Lightspeed allows the teacher to monitor the windows that are open on a student's laptop when they're working on it. And there's also different features in some of our testing tools, like if we were testing on the Illuminate platform, which is a platform that we typically use for multiple choice, but it can also do open-ended questions. You can lock down the browser so it will only have that platform up. So it's a matter of, testing different tools and seeing what works best for your purpose with your students.
Thank you. Clay, we're back to you. What data do approved tools store, and how does ACPS prevent training on student content?
That's an excellent question and a difficult, nuanced answer. is required for it. I will say on the forefront, when we vet a tool, when we send a tool through the approval process, we are checking the terms of service and the privacy policy of the tool. And those are two just sets of legal documents that a tool will have. You can find them very easily. You just scroll to the bottom of a website and you'll see right there, terms of service, privacy policy. And those documents will state what the vendor of that tool, the company, does with the data. And we are checking that against a couple federal laws that protect student data, COPA, Children's Online Personal Protection Act, Privacy Protection Act. I should be able to rattle that off, and FERPA. Both of those are designed to protect student data and ensure that tools that are being used are appropriate for use for kids. So we're checking to say, does that data comply with those laws, first and foremost. Additionally, though, we have a separate AI review committee. So when we review a technology resource, that committee takes a look at a few other things, and those are the things that I shared earlier, which is privacy being one of them. What specifically is the AI model doing with the data that goes in? Is it looking at it and making some conclusions and then throwing it away? Or is it holding on to it? Or is it taking it and saying, I can make my model better with that data? And what we don't want is that, particularly that last piece, which is where the model trains itself on data. And that's kind of that threshold. That's a cutoff for us. So when we see that, that's when we're saying, no, we won't approve that tool in our environment. Does that answer the question for you?
Mhm.
I will say, I'm sorry, I said it was a nuanced answer. I'm gonna I'm gonna hit the other side of the coin. The other piece of that too, though, is the human piece. And that is that we, as humans interacting with technology, have to be thoughtful about what we're doing with it. So even if a vendor's privacy policy says we're not doing XYZ with your data, there's always risk when we put our data out there. So just like when you store your password, it's not best practice to put your password on a post-it note on a computer that you're gonna take out into public because somebody might see it. It's smart to have good digital hygiene practices, and that includes the way we interact with AI. So not putting personal information in. These are things that we are sharing with students in some of the lessons that Monica referenced. And there are also things that are included in the best practices and professional learning that we're providing to teachers to make sure that both the human piece and the legal piece kind of match up.
And Dr. Henney, I didn't know if you had anything that you wanted to add to this conversation.
About evaluating tools, or, well, the only thing that I will say as a teacher educator is and so this is different because I am not in a position to be able to evaluate tools, is that I talk to my students who will soon be teachers about how they should not be wooed by all these tech companies that are trying to barrage teachers with tools. We're getting tools, and tools are coming at us from all different directions, and I think students are as well. And I don't have the capacity to evaluate so I encourage them to rely heavily on people like Clay's department to evaluate the tools and not to use anything that they don't know about. And that's very hard because the advertising for these tools is everywhere for us, and it's very, very challenging. And so people will come to me and they'll say, should I use Magic School? Should I do this? Should I do that? And I tell them I'm not in a position. So I stick with teaching them how to use large language models like ChatGPT or Gemini or Copilot, and then I work to tell them, the dangers of using tools that are not known. We don't know about them. So that's not a great answer, but
Thank you. We had a couple of questions around opting out of generative AI. How can we opt out of generative AI in ACPS. Coursework due to serious ethical concerns, such as privacy violations, cognitive skills, atrophy, ethics, of scrapping work by artists, and large environmental burden. And Dr. Henney, do you want to take a stab at that one?
I would love to take a stab at this one because this is the question that comes at me on a daily, hourly basis because my students are so concerned. My fellow faculty, people are very concerned and with very good reason. And the thing that I would say is that in K-12 and at the university level, we are trying to educate those people who are going to be the people making the regulations. Right now, we are in a field where we are unregulated, and many of us would argue that we need regulations, but we don't have enough information because everything's coming so quickly. And so, in order to sort of nurture those people who are going to create the regulations that we need to protect the artists, to protect the environment, to protect the different subgroups of people who can be harmed by the use of this technology, we have to make them literate around this technology. Because without an understanding of how it works and without an understanding of what those ethical concerns are, we're not going to develop the citizens that we need to help protect our society. And I'm not saying this is a bad tool, a bad technology. I'm saying that this technology is here and it's everywhere, but we need to have a stronger understanding of it so that we can regulate it. And so my students who are going to be teachers, I have this very same question. I actually don't allow them to opt out. I'm not saying that Albemarle County, like I'm not making rules for you all. This is my course for pre-service teachers because I tell them that I need them to learn about it so that they can make decisions later when they're working with their students and they can help teach their students. And so that is the direction that I'm taking. And that seems to be the direction that a lot of faculty are thinking about when they're thinking about when and how or not to use AI. So those are my 2 cents.
Could I jump in on that from
Sure.
the ACPS side?
Yes, please.
Thank you, Dr. Henney. That's very insightful. And it's why we are not turning a blind eye to this, right? I just want families to know that the lessons that we've been developing are cognizant of these concerns. So there is a lesson around the environmental impacts. There are lessons to help students think through, is this helping my learning or is it hindering my learning? So all of these concerns, we are not gung-ho. We are trying to take a measured and balanced approach so that we're not creating opportunity gaps for those that have access to it and those that don't. But at the same time, we want those that have access to it to be thinking about the ethics behind all of this. So that is baked into our approach. I will also say that if you have questions or concerns about something instructionally that your task or an assignment, whatever it might be, we encourage you to please reach out to your child's teacher and have a dialogue with them about what it is that's happening in the classroom and with that assignment. They are your partners. They are the folks who are developing lessons and clarifying. And we're all figuring this out together, and we want to partner with you. Your teachers want to partner with you around figuring what this means for all of us. So.
Thank you, Clay. Clay, Monica, Megan, can you talk a little bit about the PD and just-in-time supports that exist for our instructors in ACPS and some of what has been rolled out this year for our staff.
Who wants to start? I'll start and hand it off. The one group that we haven't mentioned so far is we have a steering committee. This is just a large group of division leaders kind of forming the direction of that we're taking around this. And a big part of that steering committee is our professional learning team, as well as myself, who is over our learning technology team. And we've been collaborating on a professional learning plan. And what's happened this year, all staff, K-12, got some initial training during pre-service week around our division's guiding principles and policy, as well as we're given some information and resources. And I'll let Monica speak in a moment about what we did with our ELA and social studies staff in addition to that all staff training. But then everyone has a learning technology integrator, as I mentioned, in their school. And so we really believe that professional learning that happens in isolation doesn't tend to carry through. We need support after those sessions. And so that's our learning technology integrator's role, is to be standing alongside staff, meeting with staff, sometimes modeling lessons for staff, co-teaching with staff. We do a lot of different things, but AI is one of those areas. So there's ongoing learning. And we are, this is not a one and done thing. We know this. This is a big disruption, and there's a lot for us to think about moving forward. So we have a professional learning committee, an AI committee, and those groups are thinking through an ongoing professional learning plan. So look forward to hearing more about what sort of lessons, curriculum we're developing, as well as discrete professional learning sessions and coaching around AI that we're providing to our staff. And I'll let Monica or Megan chime in as they will.
I don't want to speak for Megan. I'll let her describe some of the lessons, but Megan and I worked together to do some pre-service training with the language arts teachers, and they all had opportunities to look through the lessons, ask questions. There was even time needed, I think, for teachers to debrief how they were feeling about the educational landscape changing. I think humanities teachers had a lot of feelings about that, you know, in all honesty. But we want to make sure that one subject doesn't necessarily make the decision for all subjects, and we know that it's tied to our curriculum and our standards now, so we can't put blinders on, and we have to address it to some extent. I also lead the K through 12 libraries, so I will say that many of our librarians will go off to any of the state trainings that are offered, and look at some of the technologies that are offered and bring them back. And those pieces will go through a vetting process. And sometimes, you know, they don't cut the bound, like the checklist for our school division and for the appropriate uses of K through 12. So there's lots of professional development happening in different pockets for different purposes. Megan, I'll let you kind of take the mic and talk a little bit about the types of lessons that history and language arts teachers were shown.
Yeah, so we have a sequence of lessons that we scaffolded all the way from 6th grade up until 12th grade. So they're getting these lessons, as we said, in ELA and history. The lessons are largely around some basic topics in AI, things like what is AI? How is it created? Topics like how can it potentially, where does it have the potential to help you learn, and where can it really keep you from learning? And really learning that responsible use. So where is that line that you really don't want to cross? Let's be honest, we're honest with students, and we say AI is really a production tool, and it's intended often to be used by people who are already experts. You are not experts, so it is not appropriate in many cases for you to be using it. You're just bypassing your learning, which is not a good thing. So we try to really get that message across in some of our lessons. We're also focusing in on things like bias and misinformation, and always having to check your sources and cite your sources. We're talking about citation as well as writing AI disclosure statements. And in some of the art classes, we're also doing lessons around copyright issues relating to AI and stealing of artwork, and all these really tough things that are happening right now. We're trying to grapple with that and have these honest conversations in some of the arts, the fine arts classes as well. So there's lots of lessons happening with students. As far as PD for staff, we do have some formal courses that have been offered asynchronously and synchronously for staff for the last year. We have something coming up called Making Connections, which is a day of just professional learning for teachers. And we're going to have lots of AI is such a big topic right now for everyone. We're going to have lots of sessions around AI for teachers as well. And I have conversations with teachers all the time about AI. One of the questions I saw in the chat was how are teachers actually being able to track whether students are using it or not? And as Dr. Henney said before, it's really, really hard. I actually just had a conversation with a teacher about this yesterday. A lot of those AI detectors are just not, they don't work. And now there's even machines, tools that students can use to get around the detectors. I mean, it's just constantly evolving. It's kind of like playing whack-a-mole. So the kind of conversations we have to have is, how do we know our students? Part of our mission is to know our students. Well, how do we know our students as writers? How do we know their voices? So it really comes down to knowing your students, watching them through the writing process if you are having them write something, seeing the different iterations and the different drafts along the way. There are a couple tools that we do use, and the one that I was suggesting this teacher use yesterday called Brisk Inspect Writing, and it does show you as a student types into a Google Doc all of their revisions and all of their history and any copies and pastes that go in, so that a teacher can trace how something is being created. That's really the best that we can do at this point at being able to see, how students are creating and making sure that we're holding them accountable to authentic creation. But these are ongoing conversations that we have all the time with teachers. So that's really, in a nutshell, how we're going about training teachers constantly around this topic.
Okay, I was just checking the questions in the chat. We have time for maybe one or two more questions. One question I had, Clay, where can families find the AI principles, the syllabus language, and the usage scale after tonight?
All of that can be found on our website, k12albemarle.org/AI. They're linked right at the top. There's also, if you scroll down, there's some frequently asked questions for families as well. And like I said, we're going to continue to add resources. I'd also love to plug a resource that Miles mentioned earlier, Common Sense Media. We love Common Sense Media and ACPS. They're an advocacy group that really helps families and teachers to think through the healthy integration of technology into school or just into your home. And they have recently developed an AI toolkit for families. I definitely recommend that you check that out because that will provide you with a lot of resources that are immediately available to have these conversations with your student. And we are also working on some resources internally that we'll be sharing with you. Many of you may have seen our family field guide for technology before. We are revising that, and there will be a component or a page in there about AI and some supports as well. So, but if you take one thing away tonight, k12albemarle.org/AI.
All right, we have time for one more question. We are close to the end of our time together. And once I ask the question, I'll place in the chat the superintendent's office at k12albemarle.org. If you weren't able to ask your question tonight, if you would please send your question again to the superintendent's office at K12 Albemarle. And last question goes to Dr. Henney. Where can K12 and universities partner next in regard to AI?
I think we have to partner like right now, right here, together. And I think that that especially in teacher education, but also within the disciplines, I know that there are foreign language faculty who are reaching out to work with teachers. I know that there is a lot of work. We talked a lot about humanities here, but a lot of work in STEM around AI that I think that faculty can work together. But I think this is you asked me that question about, what would I want students to know or be able to do with AI coming into the university. I think we need to talk to each other and decide the direction of our disciplines and how we build a pathway. And I think that this is a great opportunity. And I know that after this conversation, I'm going to be reaching out to people like Monica and Megan and Clay and ask how can I help? How can I learn from you? Because I'm very interested in this. And I think that just having these conversations is really important. And attending professional development together and talking. That's the best thing that we can do. I
Well,
think.
thank you so much. We have run to the end of our time together this evening. Again, you can see that we put in the email address superintendent's office at k12albemarle.org in the chat box so you can send additional questions and or request information. Briefly to close, I would like to remind you of the upcoming AI community conversations. However, before I do that, I would like to thank our panelists for their time, Dr. Haas for attending, Gary Moore for technology support, Corey Yeager for interpretation. As I mentioned at the beginning of the session, we have recorded the session and we will send it out to our entire community. The session will be up on our YouTube channel, so you will have access to it. I cannot encourage you enough to email the superintendent's office at k12albemarle.org email address. I'm going to put in the chat one more time. Tonight's event was the first of several community conversations focused on AI. Upcoming opportunities include the Student Leadership Lunch, that's scheduled for October the 23rd, the PTO President's Breakfast, scheduled for November the 13th, Family Council, scheduled for November the 19th, and the Special Education Advisory Committee, or SEAC, and that's scheduled in the spring for February the 10th. We welcome your participation and look forward to hearing your ideas for future community information sessions. Thank you to all for an outstanding session and have a great night.
Good night. Good night, everyone. Good night, Dr. Kaiser.
Good night.